Premiered on June 12, 1999, with a general release on June 16, 1999, it is often marked as the final film in the Disney Renaissance. Based on Tarzan and the Apes by Edgar Rice Burroughs, this movie led to 2 direct-to-video sequels, a TV series, and a Broadway show. It nearly grossed $450 million worldwide, received critical acclaim, and an Academy Award for Best Original Song. It first hit home video on February 1st, 2000, and for the purpose of this podcast, we watched the 2014 Special Edition Blu-ray. Hi, I'm Justin, and across from me is Stella, and this is the discussion on Walt Disney's Tarzan. This is the first thing I'm doing for the new year, 2020. Happy New Year, everyone. I haven't done any creative project since the year I started, so this is the first thing, actually.
You didn't make any videos?
Not yet. I did everything in 2019. I haven't started anything since, so this is the beginning of my 2020 career of projects. The 4th discussion podcast on the classic film Tarzan. How you been doing?
4?
Yeah, this is the 4th one.
Feels like more.
Is that good or bad?
I don't know.
You think we're chugging through these a lot faster than you realize?
Yeah.
We did Snow White, we did Frozen 2, and then we did 101 Dalmatians. So, yeah, we're only the 4th one in. It's because the movies are long.
Long ways to go.
And they all start adding up, and then we do these podcasts for like an hour. So I get where you're coming from. But we watched Tarzan as picked by the randomizer. It's been quite a while, I guess, since I've seen this. I've seen this movie more occasionally than other Disney films. But, of course, I want to start this out, as always, by asking you, how did you see it first? When was the introduction to Tarzan for you?
When I was little. I don't even remember the first time I watched it. I just remember always watching it.
So this is a movie that's always been in your life?
Yeah.
Well, you were telling me about you'd watch it with your mom, and this was like kind of your favorite thing to watch with her.
Yeah, because she would sing that song to me. And there's a video of me in the living room when I was like 3. I was just hardcore dancing to Tarzan.
Which song?
I don't remember.
It wasn't You'll Be in My Heart, because I don't know how you even dance to that song.
I don't even know.
Has to be Son of Man.
Probably.
Or,
I think it's that one.
Same, though. This has always been in my living room forever. This was, like, the final Disney VHS that my parents purchased for us. Everything after that, we got Pixar on DVD, but we never got another Disney animated film. Mostly because a lot of the ones that came out in the 2000s were not that great, and I think there was like a public perception that they weren't that great. Treasure Planet, Brother Bear, movies that I probably should have seen at the time.
Brother Bear is good.
It was not received well.
But it is good.
We'll get to that.
Have you ever seen it, actually?
Yeah, no, I have now,
Okay.
but that's what I mean is that for years, a lot of these movies I never got to because they weren't purchased, we didn't get into them, and we had moved on to Pixar, as the whole world kind of did. So a lot of these movies I should have been watching, I never got to. I did see Chicken Little at one point, but
I've seen that way too many times.
I remember it being weird, and now apparently it's considered like the worst Disney film, but I kind of question that.
My cousins would watch it back to back, like finish it one day and then watch it 3 times in a day. Just start, stop.
This was the last, Disney VHS we ever owned, and this was one I popped in a lot. I really liked it. It might help that at the time there was a male lead, so it wasn't like a Disney princess movie again. I really liked the animation, the music, and the idea of being in the jungle, I guess. And it all really worked for me. So I always really enjoyed it. I still enjoy it. Looking back on it, watching it again, I was like, this movie still is top notch. Not probably one of the best Disney films all around, but still, like, really works as
pretty good
a movie. What do you think of it now? Has it changed at all for you?
No, still is good.
10 out of 10.
Probably.
Really? You like it that much?
Okay, 9.5.
Well, I mean, but still, you like it that much?
Yeah. I talk about it all the time, and I say I want to watch it all the time. That and Mulan and Hercules and Tangled. Mm-hmm.
Tarzan always seems watchable. It's one that I think you could pop in whenever, and I'd have a good time. The music really helps, and it really keeps the story chugging along. I will say, rewatching it this time, it gets weird at times, where I feel like things are almost getting rushed, especially by the end. I feel like when the movie's ending, it shouldn't be ending already. I feel like there's stuff that's missing. Maybe we could have gotten some more development.
They rushed the stuff with Clayton at the end when he's just trying to sabotage it, and then it's over.
Right.
Like, quick.
I think that's one of the biggest gripes with the movie is the villain. And not that I think he's not memorable, because I certainly remember him, but it seems like it's because I was a kid and watched the movie. Looking at it now, there seems to be development missing with the villain, with some of the side characters, with even the main character and his relationship to Jane, which that whole thing has always felt very rushed, but especially now, it's when she's getting on the boat and Tarzan, Jane's excited to show the whole world to Tarzan, and Tarzan's going to be like a marvel. And he's like, and I'll get to spend time with Jane. And she's like, oh, yeah, of course. And she's just kind of like, got a thing for him. But there's a part of me that's like, where did this come from? Because I do get it. And it's a Disney movie, so of course every relationship is like, real fast. Let's get it going. But in this case, where it was a little more modern and the movie itself was more modern, it still felt like, I'm surprised she's already gotten to this point where she's really into the guy in the jungle with almost, they hung out a few times, I guess.
Don't question it.
I guess
just
not.
Let it be.
But I guess I do wish there was some more development, because this is still an under 90-minute movie. And at this point in the Disney canon, I figured they could have maybe made the movies a little longer to add that extra development. And it would honestly still be another 15 years before they even get to that level. Because in the coming 2000s, a lot of the movies were not nearly as good. And I think you can start to see the signs towards the end of the 90s, but the movies still worked on different levels, whereas the 2000s movies didn't have the songs or the development, and there's a reason why they ended up not working so well, whereas Pixar did much better because they developed their characters, their stories, their everything. But I do love Tarzan.
1 out of 10.
I think I gave it a 7 out of 10.
Oof.
Yeah. No, it's still good.
Well,
I think it really is just that third act that really kind of messes it up for me. Tarzan is our main character, who we hear talk a lot in the beginning as a kid, and then he gets older, and how many lines does he have after that?
well, no, it's because he's with the humans more.
Right, I know, that makes sense, but once again, how many lines does he get?
I don't know. Count.
Way less. I always forget that Tarzan even talks when he's an adult, because I never remembered him talking. And it's always like really noticeable when he starts talking, especially to the mom once he first grows older, and his voice just kind of doesn't even match his design. And I'm just watching it.
What do you mean?
It just doesn't seem like the voice fits what he looks like.
I think it does.
It takes a while for me to get used to it. I guess it's just because when he was a kid, it seemed like the voice fit a lot better, but then he gets older, and that's not even really the point, but the point is that he doesn't end up speaking as much, and it's just kind of harder to relate to him then, because at first I was really into the story at first of this, the mom lost her baby, meanwhile the baby...
That is sad.
Yeah.
In the beginning. I forgot how sad that is.
Kind of.
What do you mean kind of? It's
kind
of sad?
It's kind of sad, but
What?
We talked about this while watching it, but I said that I don't like when the baby gorilla is being chased by the cheetah or the leopard, whichever one it is. I don't like that too much because it seems to like the way it's shot and the way the music is playing, it kind of makes it seem like it's playing it off like it's meant to be a Looney Tunes antic. Like, oh, like, and cheetah shows up and he's just running and it's like, and it's like weird music like that. But then they cut to the gorilla's reaction and they're sad and they're like, oh, their child just died. But it doesn't feel like that's what's about to happen. It seems like he's just going to get chased and that's it. But then he actually dies. And that always throws me off. Even as a kid, I didn't think that's actually what happened. I didn't think that she lost a child. I never, comprehended that until, watching it a little older. And I was like, oh, yeah, she lost her kid. That makes sense why she has more of a connection to Tarzan because he loses his parents, which I always understood. But
because it showed them. I was like, holy, don't like that.
Had some guts there. But yeah, that's what I mean. I don't think it's not nearly as sad as I think it's supposed to be because I don't like the way it's set up and played. But I really get into Tarzan's story at first, feeling like he doesn't connect with everyone else. And even when he does become an adult and he finally kills the cheetah or leopard, I forget. I should probably look it up.
Yeah, look it up right now.
But when he finally, Sabor as his name is, when he finally kills him...
The cheetah leopard has a name?
Yeah.
Oh. When do they say it?
The mom calls him Sabor at one point. It's a leopard. It is a leopard. The leopard Sabor. I get into it when he gets older and he kills the leopard, and there's almost going to be a moment between him and Kerjak, except it's interrupted by the humans that are landing on the island or the edge of the jungle or wherever they are.
Yeah.
Africa, I guess. But I do connect with him at that point, with his story and his feeling that he doesn't belong, but he's trying to find his way in. And then eventually he turns away from that to instead spend time with the humans, and he wants to connect to that life more. He's just kind of swayed one way or the other, but he doesn't know, he's just excited by the new world that's arrived. But what I mean is that after that, I completely, lose interest in the story after that. Because it doesn't seem like they go much else with it. He connects with the humans. They're like, you gotta come with us. He's like, I gotta leave home? Okay, I guess I'll leave home. Oh, let's not leave home. And then they don't. And it's just kind of, it's really rushed. And this all, once again, goes back to the third act, where it's a good movie. But I think the third act is what keeps it back from becoming a great movie.
That part when he finally, because he doesn't want Jane to leave, and he finally brings her to see his family, and then Clayton betrays them all and tries to kill him. That part is sad. You don't like that part?
No, it's sad, but also it's not surprising.
It doesn't need to be surprising.
But it also kind of doesn't make sense to me every time I watch it now. And I really wish I could hold my disbelief a little about this part, but it seems weird that Clayton's able to hold the captain hostage, the professor and Jane hostage, meanwhile Tarzan as well, cause a mutiny, and he's planning on still capturing all the gorillas, which was his plan all along, to bring them to, I guess, sell to the highest bidder, which, whatever, I'll understand that part, but I don't understand how he's going to keep them all captive and keep them alive. Then what's his next step? Is he going to land at the next harbor, sell the gorillas, and they're all just going to keep quiet about it and be like, he kept us hostage and no one's going to care?
He's going to drop them off on an island somewhere.
Well, I can imagine. He has to do something with them because he can certainly not bring them with wherever he's going. I'm like, he either needs to kill them or get rid of them. But that's the thing. That's kind of like a Clayton issue where he's not a top-notch villain. I forget
he's a villain.
I've heard arguments that they should have kept the leopard as a villain throughout. That
would be a very boring one. Because why does he not talk?
That's another good point. Why doesn't he talk? Because look through the Disney canon. Think of evil animal villains and how many of them have talked.
Yeah, but it would make sense like, oh, just the gorillas can talk to each other. No, there's an elephant too.
Mm-hmm.
He talks to him.
Yeah, and it seems like that's about it then. Like the elephants talk and none of the other animals. I can't even think of any of the other ones that talk.
The other monkeys don't.
Right.
Why?
The baboons don't talk either. But like a lot of that's excusable because you're like, well, they're only in one scene, they're screeching, it makes sense. But why doesn't the leopard talk? And it's weird because it could have almost been... Honestly, Tarzan has more of a connection to that leopard than he does to anything else because that's the thing that literally killed his parents. Mm-hmm. The leopard... Imagine if the leopard killed Kerjak, and that almost adds like another side to it. And the leopard kind of has these really slimy monologues about like, oh, it's just a way of nature.
They should make it like Jungle Book, like the one in there.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I've literally heard exactly that argument before, that they needed to make him more like Shere Khan.
Yeah.
And Clayton's not bad. I don't think he's bad, but I do like his character. I don't like that he ends up becoming a very one-sided villain. I kind of like the idea of what if he was joining the group and he was just a little crazy with the sword and wacky and kind of mean at times, but they just left it at that. Like, what if that just was what he was? Just a mean, cranky dude, not with some other intention of I want to kidnap all the gorillas and...
Or what if he, like, let someone in on it and then a big boat of people came? Like, he was just the insider. Yeah,
and there was, like, another one and he, like, betrayed them that way because that would almost make more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It really... And it all goes back to that third act. And I kind of want to know... Was there a version of the script? I don't know if Clayton comes from the original story. I don't. I haven't read the original story. I don't know much about it, and I haven't seen the other movies. But I don't know if Clayton was originally part of the story. I want to know if the original script for this movie did have that leopard in a bigger role. I am so interested in that idea. And...
Do some research.
Well, this did go through several script changes. This movie was in development for a long time. I don't know if this is one that even Disney himself wanted to do, but this was like many years in development before it finally got off the ground. It makes me wonder because Clayton feels more like they needed something for the third act to give it a climax, but I don't think they necessarily needed to do it the way they did, and then they rushed it. I guess I'm not too disappointed because he has an awesome death scene. Him getting, like, pretty much killing himself by cutting all those vines, and then he cuts the wrong one and gets choked, hung by one of the vines.
Why do I not remember that? We just watched it.
It happens really quick, and if you're not... There's even, like, a quick lightning flash, and you see the outline of his shadow. It goes against, like, the trees, and you can, like, see his hanging body. It's so messed up.
Yeah, why do I not remember that?
Give it another watch. That's how he dies, though.
Apparently. Shouldn't have watched it 2 weeks ago and now it did this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even remember that. Ew.
So, overall, disappointed in that villain, in a way. But I wish they would have just kept him as a slimy, gross guy.
He could have been Gaston type. But Gaston did it right. Clayton is wrong.
He is kind of like Gaston. Like, that is probably where they took a lot of influence from. Doesn't work nearly as well, I don't think, as what you could have done for a villain. Or not even have a villain. Just create some other issue. You could have done...
The dad could have been the villain.
The professor?
No. The gorilla dad.
Kerjak?
Yeah.
Well, I felt like what they were doing with his story and his connection with Tarzan, I thought was going in a good direction. They could have just had the villain be like nature itself. You know, if you didn't want the leopard, you could have...
Okay, Frozen 2.
Well, I mean, just like what they do in the original Jungle Book, where it's like a giant fire at the end. I can't remember if they do that in the animated movie or not, but they do it in the live-action one, and that is in the original story. I guess it's just... That's what I mean. It all goes back to that third act. So what do you think of Jane?
I love her so much.
I do, too. In fact, that's... part of my disappointment of their development. I wish there'd just be more of her.
Well, they made a second one.
Tarzan and Jane?
Yeah. I've never seen it, have you?
I have not, and I have no wish to, but maybe someday.
I feel like they'll wreck her.
Well, that was supposed to be like the pilot to a TV show, and there actually is a TV show. I never realized this. It ran for like 1 year. It apparently was on one Saturday morning right before it ended, and then it became ABC Kids, and then it just disappeared. It's called The Legend of Tarzan.
I've heard of it. I've never seen it.
And there was a Tarzan 2, but that's about when he was like a little guy. And George Carlin's in it, apparently.
I think I've seen that one. I don't remember it, though.
Jane has one of my like favorite introductions to like a character in any of these Disney movies, where she just ends up in the jungle and all that crap is happening one after the other, and Tarzan's trying to save her, and she's just got that British charm, and she's just all
helpless.
Helpless. And it's so funny, but she also has like a lot of personality. You kind of never know exactly how she'll react to things. I just think she's like much more interesting than a lot of the female leads we got. Princesses. Yeah, I mean, because she's not considered a princess. There's no reason for her to be considered a princess. But she's far more interesting than some of the other ones we had gotten up until that point.
Yeah, why can they make her so interesting and then Sleeping Beauty? Oh.
Nothing. I'm talking about like straight up, just recently in other movies, they had some of the female characters, not even just the princesses, but some of the female characters in like the movies of the 90s that weren't nearly as interesting. I mean, Jasmine and Little Mermaid, yeah, but...
Like what?
Some of the other characters, like in The Lion King, Pocahontas, Esmeralda, even Meg, all those...
Do not
well,
diss her.
But I'm saying they're not nearly as interesting because they don't have as much of a character. They don't have much of a personality. Whereas Jane...
You never diss Meg.
I'm not trying to diss her. I'm saying that Jane somehow has way more personality than a lot of them, and she's kind of barely in this movie at times. She shows up real quick.
They do a little montage where they're not even talking.
And yet I find her to be way more likable than a lot of the other female characters, or more memorable. I remember more of the scenes that she was in, and I do like her relationship with Tarzan when they show it. I do think it's really, pretty. I like it.
Do they try and make this movie like Beauty and the Beast? Because Clayton is like Gaston, and Jane has to dress like Belle, and Tarzan is a gorilla, like a beast. And I've always thought that it's like the same.
I'm looking at some other notes about it, and I mean, it started getting to work on like in 1994. None of the people who were on Beauty and the Beast directed or had a bigger part in this movie, but
they have Mrs. Potts in it too.
Yeah, there's that too. I mean, and there seems to be like a lot of influence. I mean, this whole movie's filled with influences from their previous movies, which is kind of almost another problem with it. It didn't really try to do its own thing as much as it did everything that the other very successful recent Disney movies had done. Like this movie, like you said, Beauty and the Beast connections. Clayton and Gaston are pretty much the same. They have the sort of Beast and Beauty mentality, but it's not as much of an aggression there. It's more of just they do get along, but they come from different worlds. Look to the eyes different, obviously. I mean, Tarzan's like a naked man, basically, and Jane's a very proper British woman. You got the side characters, which are the elephant.
Is it Tantar?
Tantar.
Yeah.
Tantar and the gorilla Turk.
I always thought it was a boy when I was little.
I did too. That's the power of Rosie O'Donnell, I guess. But those two characters are pretty much Timon and Pumbaa.
I love the elephant.
I do. I like them. But compare them. They are pretty much Timon and Pumbaa. There's no way around it. Like, Turk is Timon and the elephant is Pumbaa. Like, that's pretty much what they were doing there. And it's fine because I still like them, and as a kid, I didn't even notice. But watching it today, even the fact that Tantar has the same colors as Pumbaa, and the bigger one, you just watch it, and I'm like, that's what they're doing here, isn't it? I mean, those characters are fine, I guess.
Fine.
I like them, but it's already been done, and Timon and Pumbaa are better. So I mean, it's kind of hard to look past that now. A lot of people complain about Rosie O'Donnell as Turk, but I've never understood that.
Why? What do they say about it?
They just call her annoying, I guess. But I think there's just sort of an annoyance people have.
That character is obnoxious. I don't like that character at all.
You don't like Turk?
No.
I don't think it's bad, but it's also barely in the movie, I feel like. It's one of those things where I get to the end and I'm like, I feel like that character was in the movie a lot, like it showed up, but also I feel like they didn't say or really do anything. They are the ones that go save Tarzan from the boat, so I guess there's that. Did you know that was Glenn Close as the mom?
No.
I never realized that either, but
I didn't know that.
I like that part of it.
The mom is so sad all the time. Like, it's not funny. Like, in the beginning, I get it, because, like, she lost a baby. But it's like, even when he's old, she just seems sad all the time. And it's depressing.
I think, for me, the emotions really start to work, I think, when they go back to the tree hut and she shows him the tree hut all those years later. And,
oh, yeah, that makes sense. But, like...
But the other times where it's just, like, she's constantly just, like, in a bad mood. Or just sad, like you say.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like her character, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kerjak, who's just a grump.
He's just mad all the time.
I don't know. That's another thing where it feels like I've seen that many times before in movies, where it's like, I guess an adopted father or just a father figure in general who doesn't approve of the other person's antics or being there, doesn't feel that they belong. And that part of it I thought really works in the movie, was their like connection and how he kind of needs to prove his worth, even though he doesn't have to, but he still does prove his worth by the end. I really do love that moment. I love the fact that he's almost there. They're gonna say something to each other after he kills the leopard, because that's almost like a split in the movie, where that is almost like the end of what started at the beginning. And he kills the leopard, and they're going to have this moment, but it's immediately interrupted by pretty much what the rest of the movie is going to be, which is his human characters. That's not a flaw in the movie. I think it's actually...
And then it goes back to starting all over.
Yeah, and then they have this problem again, which is an entirely new problem, which is you're bringing a danger to our family, not because you're different, but because now you're trying to connect to these other people.
Mm-hmm.
And he almost doesn't want him to connect to those people. Before, it was like him pushing him out because he didn't feel he belonged. Now he was mad that he was even trying to leave the group because he felt it was still an endangerment to their kind. So he's like finding an endangerment in Tarzan for two different reasons. And I do find that interesting. Like, I really like the way they set that up, because that moment, it's like, if that gunshot didn't go off, they probably would have had like a moment being like, I finally see you as my son, or something like that.
Yeah. But
it's literally interrupted, and I'm like, I love that, because then it's everything about that moment cannot happen now, because there's gonna be another issue, and that's pretty much the rest of the movie until Kerjak dies and they have their moment. And that whole part of it, I think, really works, even though it's very common. It's been done many times in movies. It feels new here.
Because it's with gorillas.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. If you ever got to do like a movie that's a similar plot line to another movie, just throw gorillas in.
No.
New movie.
They've already done it. Now you got to pick baboons or something.
I think we really nailed this story down a lot of what my issues are with it, and that you are just ready to ignore it all and be like, I love it.
Yeah.
Even Clayton. Even though you got negative about Clayton there. I like this movie. I really do.
You gave it a C.
I didn't give it a C. I gave it a 7 out of 10, and I don't...
70% is a
That's
C.
not based on a school grade point average. That's like a 7 out of 10 is a movie I would watch again, but not one I immediately need to see again. That's still a good movie. For my rankings out of 10, like, it's once you hit the 4s that it's like movies that I just have no wish to return to. But let's get into it. The music. Phil Collins singing every song.
I like it.
I do too.
And everybody else hates it.
Yes. Did you know that?
Well, you told me.
People complained about Phil Collins because the movie is not a musical. A musical is where the characters are singing in the movie with relation to the events going on around them or how they are feeling in that moment. A non-musical will have music in the background that sometimes matches the scene ironically or to fit it perfectly in most movies. Phil Collins made music about the emotion of the scene, explaining how the characters feel, but it's not coming out of their mouths. That's people's biggest gripe with the movie. is that Phil Collins wrote all that music, like You'll Be in My Heart, but it's not the mom singing it, even though she does for a second. But it's not.
I thought they just didn't like him.
There seems to be a hatred towards Phil Collins, I feel, too. And I honestly think that's what it goes back to. I said that because I'm like, this is why people say they hate it. I'm like, but this is why I think people actually hate it. I think people just don't like Phil Collins. And I think it's just that. Because you don't hear this issue with, like, Toy Story, for instance, with Randy Newman. It's not a musical. Randy Newman does the same thing in that movie, yet nobody really complains about it. But anytime I do hear people complain about it, they are making fun of, specifically, Randy Newman. They're making fun of him.
People just need to chill out.
People do the same thing with Tarzan, but Phil Collins is a much more popular icon or singer.
Character.
Yeah, he is a character. But he's a more popular singer, so people go after him even more because people know him more. So I think that's really what it is.
I heard a lot of people just don't like his voice. Like, you either love it or you hate it.
Which, I can't even understand that. He's amazing. I do like Phil Collins a lot.
Me too.
Take a look at me now.
Was that in Tarzan?
It wasn't, but you could throw in any Phil Collins song, and it's like, yeah, this fits. Like, the closest I can get to, like, a movie where every song I love it. There's not, like, one, like, to me, bad song in this movie.
You don't like that song, that scene that's not really a song, when they break into the camp?
It's not my favorite, but I still kind of enjoy it. But it's not one I'd go listen to, like, in the car. But it's still, like, I actually kind of like that scene, but it's just very random. It's kind of fun. Like, I do like that we take a break from everything, and it's just kind of fun, and let's just mess up the whole camp and have this sort of beat-bot kind of mix of different tunes and sounds and make music out of it.
Is there a song you don't like?
In this movie?
Mm-hmm.
No. There's really not. Like, I like every one of them. I think some of the songs are repetitive, where it feels like they sound the same. Like, it's very hard for me to sit down and try to sing at different times. You know, like, if you were to be like, sing Son of Man to me, and I'm like, Son of Man up to the sky, and then you're like, all right, now sing The Strangers Like Me, and I'm like, I want to know, can you show, because they sound like similar almost, and I'm like, it's really hard for me to sing them distinctly, because...
What are the other songs? I literally can't.
Well, there's You'll Be in My Heart, of course, and then there's the opening song, Two Worlds, One Family. Oh. 2 worlds, one family.
And they play that at the end, too.
And you'll be in my heart. Son of Man up to the sky. Strangers like me. It's like, because they all sound like almost, because they're all by the same dude. And even his music throughout his entire career has all kind of take a couple beats out and you change the rhythm a little, and it's kind of a different song now. But
I like that, though, because then, like, sometimes you're listening to whatever albums from movies, and one just, like, does not fit, and it's just weird.
Every song is, like, way distinctly different, but it almost sounds like they should be in different movies entirely.
Like when they added that new one in the Aladdin, it just seemed weird.
Yeah, and then that's one where
it's not a bad song, but it's just,
it doesn't fit in with everything else. It's just because it's not a musical that you don't really need the songs to sound entirely different, and I still enjoy them. But it is kind of tougher for me to distinctly remember them unless I really sit down and think about it. Because it's not like Frozen. Like, every one of those songs is like, they're the same, but you can at least think of different beats and sing them almost, on cue. Whereas this movie, it's not a composer and a lyricist making it necessarily for the purpose of being in a musical production. It's more just him making a soundtrack, an album, which I still like him, though. I have no complaints about it. I don't even care that it's not part of the movie or that the characters are singing it. I like how it's done. I think there's a lot of montages, which I'm not a fan of, really, because
I think it works because, they're gorillas.
So it's got to be montages?
Are
you talking about you don't want the gorillas singing?
Well, yeah, that. But then, I don't know. Gorillas don't really talk.
So you're saying you get bored of them unless there's a montage?
Yeah, just wrap it up. Show me what they do with their life quick and move on to the story.
Yeah, I'm just not a fan of doing more than one montage in a movie, because once you start doing more than one, it starts hitting a point like, yeah, it seems like you're getting a little lazy with it, which I know isn't necessarily always true. Like, there is usages for montages, but it always makes me think of Rocky IV, where like the whole movie is just montage. So, music good, I think fits with the movie. I don't agree with everyone else's analysis.
Everyone else is wrong.
I will admit, songs sound kind of similar at times.
100% similar, but doesn't mean they're bad.
Mm-hmm. I think one of their best animated movies, animation-wise.
Besides 101 Dalmatians, they all kind of look the same to me.
Once we start getting to Sleeping Beauty and some of their package films, you'll be like, oh, these look different.
All the princess ones look the same to me.
Sleeping Beauty has a different aesthetic altogether.
A little bit. Well, yeah, okay, that one. But
I think Cinderella looks different from anything that the Renaissance did. But anything since Little Mermaid up until now has kind of looked the same. That's Little Mermaid
Frozen.
In 89. No, I'm saying 2D animation. The one thing you could say about the Renaissance is I think they increasingly got better with the animation standards as, Little Mermaid came out, and for each movie I think they improved more and more. And this one, they were at almost their best with 2D animation, with the character designs, the in-between shots, the fluid motion, the backgrounds, everything. And they mixed in some 3D animation here. And they had done that before, but I think it looks the best here when he's doing his tree surfing. And a lot of that is done in 3D animation, and I think it looks. I think the whole movie is really well done, and it makes me sad that 2D doesn't exist anymore, because this is the point. There seems to be this idea that 2D couldn't improve anymore, that 3D animation was the next best thing. People wanted to see it, and 3D animation has improved even more since then. I think 3D animation improved faster than 2D animation ever did, but 2D animation does get better over time. The more people practice it, the more technology that's created. And this movie really proves that. And it makes me sad that they're not doing it anymore. Because it's you hit this point with Tarzan. And then we didn't really make any more 2D movies, save a couple in the 2000s. And then we made The Princess and the Frog, which if you compare that to Tarzan, those are a 10-year difference. They kind of look like the same level of what the technology could do. Mm-hmm. But that just says to me that, it's because you weren't working on it anymore. You weren't trying to fix or improve it or do any more with it because everyone was so focused on 3D animation. And it makes me sad that I've seen the shorts they've done since then with 2D, and it looks amazing. But it really just goes to show that if they would have kept working on 2D animation, or kept, making at least a 2D animated movie every other year, mixed it up with the 3D animated movies, you could have kept making such miraculous things. And it just makes me sad that they don't anymore. And Tarzan really was it's kind of an end of an era to me.
It is. In the whatever
Disney Renaissance?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
it?
too. Yeah, that's the end of
too?
that. But, everything that came out in the 2000s, Fantasia 2000, Brother Bear, Treasure Planet, Atlantis, Home on the Range, all were not nearly as popular, pretty much killed 2D animation. And I think it just sucks, because Tarzan was it just really was I think a lot of people like to think the only movies in the Renaissance were Little Mermaid, Lion King, Aladdin, and Beauty and the Beast, because those were the big four. And then everything that came out in the late 90s was, they were good, but they weren't nearly as good as those first four. I'll agree, of course. I think that's true too. But if you really look at the animation of Hunchback and kind of the weirder type of animation they went for in Hercules and Mulan, and then get to Tarzan, it's they really perfected their craft. They weren't making probably as good of movies, but damn, the animation was even better than what they did. Compare this to Beauty and the Beast. I think this animation's better.
Me too.
So it's it just sucks. I'm like, yeah, you could have, if you would have just kept making better stories, you could have kept using 2D animation, but instead you were like, let's make Home on the Range. That was my big soapbox, but after that, I think that's pretty much it about Tarzan. I don't know if you have anything else to add or anything you want to say about it, anything you remember.
I don't think so.
I was thinking of the tree surfing. We didn't even talk about that, but it feels so attached to this movie now that I can't think of a time when Tarzan didn't tree surf. That used to not be a thing. Like, before it was him, like, swinging in the jungle.
Yeah.
And this movie was the one that came up with the idea of, let's have him surf the vines.
Ouch, like when he's saving Jane and he's his hand.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's awesome that they came up with that for this movie, because it's so interesting and appealing to watch. It's almost more appealing than watching an animated character swing through vines. When you're watching that in live action, it's kind of cool to watch because you're like, wow, how did they do this? But in animation, it's like, well, they just drew it. But but like seeing him like really go through all those vines at quick speeds and all the twists and turns, it's funny that it was kind of influenced by skateboarding at the time. Skateboarding was becoming a big thing, and they actually would film skateboarders in half pipes and and they would like mimic their movements and their positions and give it to Tarzan. Yeah. It was like one of the special features on the Mulan VHS when you were learning about like Tarzan. They were like,
why was it on Mulan?
It was, well, because it was the next movie that was coming out. So there was like a trailer for Tarzan, and they showed how they were filming people skateboarding, and like they filmed like Tony Hawk, and they were like, you're gonna be the influence for Tarzan, and like his whole position, the way
same
he's like
hair
that.
Too.
Not the same hair. I wish.
Close.
I mean, no, it's not. Tony Hawk doesn't have long hair.
What am I thinking of? Yeah, he does. He used to.
You're probably thinking of the snowboarder,
No.
Shaun White.
No.
Tony Hawk never had long hair.
I thought he did.
Mm-mm. A lot of skateboarders do, but he famously never did. He always like wore a helmet too.
Well, never mind.
Did you ever play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater? Apparently not.
Apparently not. Why would I?
It was like the biggest deal at the time. Pro Skater 2 is like one of the most popular video games ever.
Do you think I would play that?
I played it.
And you also had a skateboard.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I could care less.
But yeah, if you look at the way Tarzan stands, that's totally how a skateboarder positions themselves.
So, skateboarders are like gorillas.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Tarzan, good movie. I don't agree with all the complaints about it, but...
You kept calling them apes.
During the movie?
Yep.
I was kidding. Apes are easier.
You were not.
Ape is easier to say, that's why. Gorilla is not,
Gorilla.
Gorilla. Clayton. That stuff's funny. This movie has funny moments, too.
Yeah.
Which we didn't really go into at all, but it's a funny movie. There's a pretty...
The elephant's a little baby in the water.
Seems questionable to me.
Are you sure this water's sanitary?
We like quote this movie a lot.
Yeah.
Tarzan, good movie, and don't agree with all the complaints, but I have my own complaints, and pretty much every single thing ties to that third act. If they somehow would have improved upon that, I think it could have been one of Disney's best. But still good. A marvel in 2D animation anyway. But we can move on now. I guess we can find out what we will be doing next week. If you want to create the drum roll, please.
No thanks.
You have one for me?
Nope.
Whoa, Stella, how you doing that?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a great drum solo. And it's crazy that you're stopping every time I talk.
Yeah. Say the movie.
Oh, it looks like we'll be doing Alice in Wonderland. I know, I'm excited to do that. It's like one of my favorite Disney movies.
My mom didn't like it. I don't think I've ever watched it. I've watched parts.
It's weird that you've never seen it. It's a great time.
She thought it was weird, and I wasn't allowed.
Some quick notes about Alice in Wonderland. One of the first movies to come out after almost a decade of package films coming out, and also this movie has been released on like VHS, Blu-ray, DVD like millions of times. Like this is one of the most released Disney movies for some reason. Had a big resurgence in the 70s because of everyone doing drugs. So it became popular because of that. This movie and Fantasia got like a resurgence. But I've always really liked this movie, but I'm kind of disappointed because I want to do something a little more obscure, but
save those for last.
I guess with Disney movies, there's not too many that are obscure that no one's heard of, but we haven't done any package films. We haven't done any of those 80s movies or mid-2000s movies that are a little more obscure.
I'm waiting for Tangled.
I know you are. I'm waiting for Oliver and Company.
I don't want to watch that. We just watched it, like, recently.
I hope it's the next one.
I hope it's last, so I have some time in between.
Well, thanks for listening, everyone, to this discussion on the 1999 film Tarzan. Leave a comment on this episode. Let us know what you think. And I guess subscribe. People tend to say that at the end of their podcast.
Does it actually help?
Of course. Once they hear subscribe, they're like, well, now I must.
No.
Yeah, that's how it works. Well, thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next time when you wish upon a star.
Coming only to theaters June 18th. Experience an all-new motion picture event, Tarzan. Walt Disney Pictures proudly presents Tarzan. Coming June 18th.